Appraisal gaps are complicating deals. Costar has acquired Homes.com, and the owner of the Phoenix Coyotes has his home for sale in the area for close to $12 million. You'll hear about it next on Toole Time.
I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about here today. As always, we got a really high-priced local sale we'll talk about in a second from the owner of the Phoenix Coyotes. Costar making more acquisitions. But first, we'll talk about one of the biggest issues I know you're dealing with, I'm dealing with, every agent in the country, at least the ones selling real estate, are dealing with, and it's appraisal gaps complicating sales. So tell us about it, Sarah. What are you seeing? What do you know? What do you think?
So this is something that we have been dealing with for a while. I know that we've touched base on it in other episodes here, but it's something that is just continuing to kind of snowball, and it is going on. It's not a local thing. It is absolutely national. Everywhere it's going on. So basically, appraisals are not lining up. They're coming in short. So buyers are having to figure out, how do we make up that difference? And sellers are very much aware right now of this issue. So they want to see in offers that are coming in some security for themselves, that the price that's being offered is actually what they're going to get. There's a couple different ways that people are trying to bridge this gap. In some situations, you're looking at lower priced houses because you know that you need to have that cash on hand in order to make things up. So that's kind of shifting, what people's searches are initially looking like. Other times, you hope that you have some family or friends that are willing to throw you a few bucks to make up that difference there. But deals are dying because of it, and otherwise, good offers aren't getting accepted if you're not including that piece in there to take care of the seller.
Well, it's a problem. It's a good problem to have because the market's doing well for sellers and, rates are low. It's still a problem. And one of the challenges I'm seeing is that, we've had a couple of these happen where the appraisal doesn't come through. And
Sucks.
The delta and the difference is significant. It's not like it's a couple $1,000. It's like $10, $15, $20, $30,000. And some sellers are saying, screw it, I'm going to put it back on the market and see if I can do any better. And then what will happen is the home sells for more, and they get a better appraisal the second time around because there's a data issue here.
Yeah.
And, as much as some buyers are willing to make up the difference, we've had a couple clients land homes because of that. Mm-hmm. The challenge is not everyone's in that position, number one. Or two, some of these appraisals are not very good. Right. And I'm going to be very clear here on this. And I think a lot of this has to do with the lender that you choose and who the appraiser is, because we study market data all the time, right? Everyone's always looking at comps and data and different things. And I'll find sales that are much more appropriate than what's being used. And then it's almost like a hassle to ask them to look at it again. It's almost like, what are you talking about? I'm doing my job. And the reality is that some of these lenders, they get appraisers from an hour away, or they're not local. They don't understand the market. They don't understand the importance of being on this side of the street in walking distance to restaurants, bars, that sort of stuff, versus a mile away where you can't really walk there. It's like a half-hour walk, and homes sell for more because of that. And that, to me, is the biggest frustration here.
Absolutely. I think one thing that lenders can do when they're submitting this over to the appraiser, and this doesn't necessarily alleviate some of these differences, but just while trying to cover all of your bases, point out to the appraiser prior to them going out if you know that there are specific unique things about the property or features that should change the value a little bit. The more information you can provide from the get-go, the better. But it doesn't mean that they're going to follow it. And if they're not local, they might not get the significance of what that actually means. So it's tricky. It's tough.
Yeah, and the biggest issue here is that the market obviously is the ultimate determining factor of a value. A home's worth as much as a buyer's willing to pay, right? So the frustration is you're getting multiple offers at these price points, and then the appraisal doesn't come in, and then you see a bunch of pending data that comes in later.
Right.
So, my challenge here is the controls could probably be a little better on appraisers, or in a market like this where homes are appreciating 1% to 2% a month, why isn't there an adjustment for time? This is federal guidelines. This is law that's got to get changed, but they're not seeing the whole picture. And some of the big banks, it's they're just they basically are screw you, this is the appraisal. And they will not look at it. And it's almost like you have to beg them to do their job, which all the more reason to use a local lender who you can talk to somebody. We've seen this happen before. And the buyers are in a tough spot here. I mean, they're putting their client at risk because, after you lose out on a couple homes and another one comes available that maybe you lost out on the first time, a buyer may say, you know what, I got 20 grand I'm willing to put on the table just to make up the appraisal gap.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that's happening. So people are getting the houses and they can't close on them because of the lending issues. So, what solutions would you want to see here? I mean, I'd like to see maybe some flexibility in how they can evaluate this stuff for the appraisers not being so conservative. But we talk about where the appraiser's coming from. What do you think would be a good solution? Because it's great to bitch about it.
But what are we going to do?
We're solution oriented here, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if a law was passed here where it would kind of do this for us. But I mean, I think the best thing that you can do is, like you said, I mean, use a local lender that you trust, that uses local appraisers. Provide as much information as you can up front about the property. Don't be afraid to come back with to ask for it to be reappraised if you then are able to provide other comps, other supporting evidence. Sometimes you have to reach out. I've had more emails in the last month or two than I've ever had before from people reaching out being like, I saw that this one is pending or this one's about to close. Give me the information on this property. We need it for a comp. So really just kind of doing whatever you can to try and gather the data that supports it. But unfortunately, you're kind of at the mercy of the appraiser, which ultimately isn't great all the time. It's kind of out of your control, which sucks.
So it definitely does suck, right? I mean, the buyers are the ones paying for this, and some sellers are just like, screw it, I'm going to put it back on the market because the market's so incredible right now for sellers that someone's going to be willing to buy it, and that's a tough spot to be in. So I'd love to see lenders and appraisers protect their client a little more here instead of just dumping it on the realtor and we have to negotiate it all out, because sometimes there's not an outcome that's going to be acceptable, and that's what a lot of people don't get. So it's a tough time right now. I mean, especially when people are waiving contingencies, and they lose that protection, and that's the only way they're getting the house. And then maybe the lender says, well, why did you waive the mortgage contingency? And our job's to get them the house.
Exactly.
So, having a lender that's going to cooperate is a good thing here, and also just kind of letting your buyer know what's up and preempting what's going to happen here, because if they know going in, it's a little easier conversation to have than if they have no idea this is a possibility.
Right. It's an easier pill to swallow when they see it coming versus just being like, oh, hey, yeah, we got to do this. They need the information, and your expectations need to be set going into it so that you know what you're dealing with, and also so you understand other people are doing this. You're not crazy for doing this. This is what you need to do to be competitive in many cases.
Yeah, and sometimes it's what's most important to the buyer is get us the house. I don't care how. So what I'm hearing here, and I think, at least how you can deal with this is, one, get someone local where at least their appraisers coming from the same county the property's in or whatever your municipality is, depending on where you are in the country. And two, have the tough conversation up front and be the knowledge broker, right? We talk about that all the time. So, and I mean, we literally practice this every day, how to have these conversations. So I think that's the only way to deal with this. And then also, kind of work with the appraiser a little bit. A lot of realtors don't return calls from the appraiser, which is the worst thing you can do, because they don't have any. They were doing drive-by appraisals up until a couple weeks ago. So that's another issue. So I just, be easy to work with.
Yeah.
I find it funny how often you have to tell realtors, don't be a jerk and be easy to work with, right?
Right. It goes a long way.
I mean, any business, right? So that's business advice for anyone watching. So this isn't going away either. I mean, so I think there's stuff here. You can take this if you're a consumer, if you're an agent, implement those couple of things right away, and it's going to get you at least better results you can deal with.
Absolutely.
So Costar is in the news again, right? They bought Homes.com, which is a online search portal. They paid $156 million in cash. It's like Randy Moss would say, straight cash, homie, right? You probably don't even know who Randy Moss is. I don't. Wide receiver. Okay. But and this is the second acquisition they've made. They bought HomeSnap, which is another real estate portal, for $250 million a couple months ago. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, it seems like they're really trying to get their ducks in a row to make some moves here. They're loading their arsenal, I would say, with different tools, and they're trying to get even more competitive. So while they haven't come out and said that they're trying to compete directly with Zillow, if we read between the lines here, I feel like that's, even though this story isn't Zillow's story this week for once, it still always comes back to Zillow.
That's what the most eyeballs are. Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening in the industry right now.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up Zillow because like they're so Andy Florence, who is their CEO, he came out and said, hey, it's highly complementary to HomeSnap because HomeSnap has a lot of powerful mobile tools and highly effective agent marketing. And Homes.com is the online portal and consumer traffic site. So now that's kind of what Zillow is. Zillow also has their own app, their own CRM. It's not a very good one. They'll be the first ones to tell you. So now they kind of got the pieces in place, right? And then what I love about this, and this is very Zillow-like, I will say, he also came out and said in January that his company isn't competing with Zillow, but rather the residential agent is Zillow's competitor. And while that may be true, this to me is exactly what Zillow did for years. Hey, we're not going to compete with you real estate agents. We're not going to do it. And then they start hiring salaried real estate agents to work with them. So my view is that this is the only company I see out there that's going to be able to do anything to Zillow. And even if they do, let's say they come out and they do the exact same thing. How many homes are these guys really selling? 20% of all the properties? I mean, there's still opportunity out there for agents. And some people are, Zillow and Costar are the devil, or like they don't say that about Costar, but they probably will if this plays out.
Sure.
And there's a way to make money and profit from these things and acquire clients from them, and it's like an acquisition cost. And and a lot of agents don't really have a lot of formal business training, so I'm clear they're absolutely gearing up.
For sure.
And look, Realtor.com was a thing before Zillow even existed, and they handled it horribly. Realtor.com, they're trying to have the same program Zillow has with Zillow Flex. They're trying to do a lot of the same things, but their infrastructure is just not there.
Right.
CoStar's is. CoStar is legit, and
they've been strategic about how they're pulling their stuff together.
They're doing the same thing Zillow did.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't worry, we're not competing.
Right.
Looking right at agents in a room at their premier agent conference. Don't worry, Sarah, we're not competing. And then they come out and compete. Yeah. Well, they don't say the yet part. So, do you think they could actually put a dent into Zillow's market share? Do you think they can actually make Zillow have to pivot here? And is Zillow talking about them and considering them a threat?
I'm sure that they're on Zillow's radar. I doubt that Zillow's scared of them. I think that CoStar is doing what they need to do in order to position themselves the best way they can in order to compete. But I think that there's space for both of them, and they'll kind of play it out. I think they'll both be here.
I agree.
I don't think one's gonna take the other.
There's plenty of business for everybody, right? Yeah. Maybe Zillow will buy CoStar.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But although CoStar's got a bigger market cap, but that's not here nor there. So the point is, I agree with you, and I don't see the loser here as being CoStar or Zillow.
Right.
To me, the loser is the agent doing 5 deals a year, the agent that doesn't have any business plan, the husband and wife team that are doing 15 sales, the companies and some of these bigger companies, like these brokerages that are constantly fighting and suing each other instead of getting real about the real threats that are out there to their business. And I wouldn't be nervous either. And we talk about threats to our team and our business all the time, and the threats are always going to be there, and they're going to keep coming. And as long as you know about them and can pivot, that's what both these companies are doing. And CoStar did this because they saw an opportunity.
Right.
They didn't just do this because they were oh, we're going to go after Zillow, because that's a stupid way to run a business. You don't want to start, have a vendetta against somebody and then just come after them. It's because they see an opportunity, and it's probably the same opportunity Zillow saw. And
absolutely.
Let's face it, real estate's the last industry to get disrupted until the past 24, 36 months.
Sure. I think it's the same as we've talked about before. Stay ahead of it, know what's out there, and then be strategic about it and use things to your advantage rather than fight it. Take what you can from it and work with it.
If I was an agent, which I am.
Which I am.
Yes. I feel like that Bud Light commercial. Are you a doctor? Yes, I am. I would be looking at getting involved with both of these and making sure see how viable HomeSnap and Homes.com is. I would test out and see what this is like right now, just like people have tested Zillow and tested other portals, because if the leads convert and you can get a positive ROI, and that's one lead pillar, just a singular one. And we talk about this all the time internally. The agents that are relying on one thing, they're the ones that are out of business. When you got your Sphere working, you got Zillow working, you got some sort of listing lead gen. If I was an agent, I'd be looking at this hard and saying, okay, let's see how these things do. Let's test it out and see if I can make money with it.
It's a classic, don't put all of your eggs in one basket.
Yes.
Well, diversify your portfolio,
Well, that's exactly what it is, though. You don't want to, because when you do, that's when you're vulnerable. I know there's teams out there that their whole business model was, I'm going to buy Zillow leads That's all I'm going to do. Like, they don't work their sphere. They don't go out and get listings. And those are the teams and that are, in a lot of trouble right now. And, I mean, you see, especially the way the market is where pending sales are down. People aren't doing as much business. And you see these other teams and other groups that are doing more business than ever.
Right.
There's a reason for that, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at this and seeing if it's going to be something that's a positive cash flow or a positive ROI lead pillar, and then kind of going from there, because CoStar's not going away, and and just like Zillow isn't either. I mean, I remember when Zillow came out, and people were like, what is this website? Who do they think they are?
Right.
And you can bitch about it, or you can do something about it.
Right. And now, like, no one doesn't know what Zillow is,
You have the SNL skit,
Right.
it's I mean, that's not what my house looks like, but maybe other people's. So, so I think, I think there's some good advice here for agents, and more importantly, like, this is going to keep happening, and they're coming into the residential space, whether people like it or not.
Yep.
So this third story here, this is pretty interesting. A little like gossipy, I would say, to a certain extent. Maybe, it might be more your alley than mine. So there's a home in Gladwin that just came back to the market. And it was on the market with another agent for a while. And it's it was funny because this is in the Philadelphia Business Journal. And, and there's other higher priced properties that are out there. But this particular property, it's listed by an agent from New York, which I find very interesting, which we can talk about in a second. It was purchased for $12 million in 2006, and now it's listed at 11.9, and they put a ton of money into the property. It's a 16,000 square foot home on 32 acres in Gladwin, and the owner has an ownership interest in the Phoenix Coyotes, right? So, and his agent basically came out and said the seller's a committed seller. I think this was just a press piece to try to get the home sold, but it kind of brings up a better point. Like, who's buying these homes? How many of these sell? I mean, you see a listing like that. I mean, obviously the house is ridiculous.
Right.
What do you think about all this?
Yeah, so there are not a ton of people in the market for this price home. I mean, there's
in our marketplace. I agree.
In our marketplace. So, he's been dropping the price, but he just dropped by $2 million. So when you see like that large of a price drop, he's motivated, trying to drum up some interest, but I think the highest offer that came in was around $7 million.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it said in the article here. I mean, who knows? I mean, because these things aren't usually made public, but yeah, that's a big delta.
Right.
It's like half the price.
Yeah. So you're not getting a ton of offers in on this property, and I'm sure that they are really kind of looking through and making sure that anybody that's interested in coming out to see it is very well qualified and has the potential to buy it. They're not just, I mean, I've gotten calls before from people who are in a certain price range, and all of a sudden they'll be like, hey, I want to see this home, and it's like so outside of it, and it's like, well, no, like at that price, like a lot of agents are gonna like require that you show them proof of funds before you can even just go look at it, because there are these unbelievable properties, right? But yeah, I guess they're trying to drum up some interest.
I mean, to me, it's like, the New York agents are a little different, and like they don't have an MLS in New York, so that makes it a little more challenging. A good friend of mine is Josh Rubin. What's up, man? I mean, you like it's definitely a challenging market up there. What's surprising to me is hiring an agent who's not local, because normally with these kind of homes, the agent's got to be there to show it, right? So is this guy jumping on a train to come down
every
here?
time, right?
Now, I don't know how many people are looking at the home in general, because we actually went through and wanted to highlight some of the higher price listings and sales. There's not a lot of stuff like this. And, seeing, I mean, it's the house it's crazy. It's got 8 bedrooms, 4 half bathroom, or 8 bathrooms, 4 half bathrooms, 7-bedroom house. It's got the basement's 5,000 square feet. That's bigger than most houses. And I'm sure the home's beautiful. I think it's got a tennis court. The challenge here is one thing. The median income in our marketplace is $87,000 a year. And even for higher priced homes, you can get a really nice home for $2 or $3 million in here. Like on the same level that would be $15 million in California, right?
Absolutely.
So just to give some perspective. And when you look at what's sold, and I always look at addressable market, less than 3% of the homes that sold last year were above 650, 700, depending on what county you're in. So you got 3% of the market in the 5th most populated metro market in the country, right? So it's a smaller percentage of the market, number one. Over the past 2 years, there's only 2 sales, and there's a lot of activity around the $5 million range, and after that it kind of, and by a lot I mean like 15 or 20.
Okay.
And then there's 2 homes that sold in Chester, Delaware, Bucks, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. There's one in Glenside that sold for $8.5 million, and then a place in Haverford that sold for $7.3. The home in Haverford, it's the same township, so it's like apples to apples.
Okay.
It's on 2 acres, so it didn't have the acreage. It was 12,400 square feet, and that went for $7.3 million.
Wow.
So, and that's also right by like Marion Golf Club, which a lot of people like because it's like a historic golf club, and they had the U.S. Open there. So, and then if you look at the active listings, like there's a listing in the Laurel. It's the condo down at off Rittenhouse Square for $25 million. And there's a place on Monk Road that's on 67 acres, so it's got double the acreage, and they're at $24 million. I mean, I just don't see a lot of buyers for these properties.
No.
You can get a really great house for $2 or $3 million.
Right. Absolutely.
Really great. And 5 is insane. This house is great. I mean, I see why people would like it, but it's just I don't know how many people are going to come in and want to buy that home in this area and spend that kind of money.
Right.
Knowing what the market is.
For sure.
So, like, what is it, like, you're an agent, right? Or you get a buyer that comes in. Like, what does this signal for the market, or what does this mean for the marketplace in general when you see stuff like this happen and these, like, high-price sales comes out and they just don't move? I mean, some of these homes are on the market for years.
Well, I think that kind of regardless of what the market is, this end of luxury homes in this area are not quick movers. Like, regardless of if it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, or whatever, they tend to not fly off the shelves just because, again, in this area, there isn't a huge number of buyers that are looking at that price point. So I don't know that it really signifies anything for the market. I mean, I think it's just kind of, this is often what it is. Obviously, the seller, he's dropping it $2 million at a time here is motivated, but for what he put into it, not that he's never going to recoup this back.
Yeah,
but
that will not happen.
It's a good deal, I guess. No, but yeah, you're not really going to find. I don't think you're going to find a ton of buyers that are flocking to it.
Well, and what I see here is something that I think anyone who owns a luxury property, and it could be $1 million, it could be $2 million. There's going to be some that get a lot more activity than others, and it kind of depends on like the township that you're in, the area that you're in, because we know that like certain price points in Newtown Square move really well, and then you get above that price point, and the activity like drops off. Same thing with anywhere along the main line, it kind of goes township to township there. My view is if you're a luxury seller and you're not getting a lot of activity on your home, and you get an offer,
you might have to take it.
The next one might not come for like a year, and then you got to factor in your carrying costs, like what that's going to cost you. And I just don't know if there's going to be a better time to max out your price point there. So I think the timing on this is good because the market is so frothy right now, especially for sellers. Very incredible. You better look at that first offer pretty hard. It's not like in the meat and potatoes market where you're in like that 3 to 5 to 6, even 700 range where you need a couple days. Like you get an offer that comes in and you've been on the market a few months, you might be waiting a long time until that next one comes in.
I agree.
And that's the high end market though. I think it's just a lot different. And you also got to be patient too. I mean, there's not to buy a home that's $12 million, right? People always buy a home that's 4x their annual income. So you're making $3 million a year. Now there's certainly people that are worth a lot of money that do that, but some people aren't going to want to put that kind of money into their house either.
Right.
I mean, if you got a family of 3 or 4 kids, I mean, I got a family of 5. I don't know that I would need 16,000 square feet. It'd be nice sometimes, especially now that we're in lockdown and all that stuff. But I mean, some people are going to be a little more conservative with what they spend on their homes. So I think
just because you can afford it doesn't mean that you even want that large of a home.
That's good advice for any buyer, by the way. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should buy it.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, this will be interesting. I mean, we'll kind of keep our eyes on this. I mean, I hope it sells for anybody. I hate seeing homes sit on the market, but this is the high-end market. Like this is like this is the highest end. Doesn't get any higher.
Right.
It's I mean, you can see there. I mean, there's 2 homes that sold above $7 million, let alone as high as this over the past 24 months. So I think that's really relevant to kind of see here. So we'll be back next week. Exciting news coming up on the next episode. We'll share it with you then. Thanks for watching.